Causal research can be defined as a research method that is used to determine the cause and effect relationship between the two variables. Whatever the information which is collected by the researcher, so it will be leaked to the competitors. So thereby here the researcher may lose his value. To test the market for a new product by collecting data about the sales potential. Hello everyone, I am Harshita, lecturer, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. My dear students, today we are in the fourth session of Unit 2 of the subject Business Research Method, and the Unit 2 is all about Business Research Design. So already in our previous sessions relating to this particular unit, we have discussed few of the topics. So let us quickly recall what we have discussed in our previous session. So in a previous session, I have covered this topic, that is we were discussing about various methods of business research design. So which are the methods? So we have learnt about exploratory research, we have learnt about descriptive research, and the third type of research is causal research or experimental research. So in a previous session, I have discussed this descriptive research. Now before that, so what is this exploratory research? Here, the researcher will explore the problem. So, he will not have a sufficient information, that is, previous research will not be conducted on that particular topic upon which he is going to collect the information. He is going to explore that particular topic, which is known as what? Exploratory research. Here, we are going to mainly consider three aspects, that is, we have to give importance to the three words, that is, what, when, and how. So this is under exploratory research. We have to give importance for these topics, that is in order to explore the problem. Next, second type of research is that descriptive research. Now what do you mean by descriptive research? Here the researcher will describe the problem, and here the information or here the main aspect or here the researcher has to give more importance to the concept of what, rather than why, how and when. He will give importance for what, because he is going to describe the problem. So that is known as what? Descriptive research. Under that we have learned few of the topics like characteristics, applications of descriptive research, then advantages, descriptive research methods. So which are the best methods which can be used under descriptive research method, then examples of descriptive research. So these are the few topics what we have discussed in our previous session. In today's session, we shall continue with one more method, that is causal research or experimental research. So this is a very important research method where we are going to identify the cause and effect relationship between the two variables. So here which are the two variables? So you have to remember this. There are two variables. One is dependent variable. Other one is independent variable. So these are the two variables where the researcher have to give the importance in order to find out cause and effect relationship. So let us see what is this causal research now. Causal research can be defined as a research method that is used to determine the cause and effect relationship between the two variables. Now, which are the two variables? Dependent variable and independent variable. So, using causal research, we decide what variations takes place in an independent variable with a change in dependent variable. Suppose, whatever the changes which are made in dependent variable, how it will affect the independent variable. That we are going to learn under causal research or experimental research. So, for example, if the child is crying for a chocolate, okay. So, there are two things here. One is child. So, this is what? This is dependent variable. Now, child is a dependent variable and chocolate is an independent variable. So, chocolate is a independent variable where the child is crying for the chocolate. Okay, so once the chocolate is given to the child will stop crying. Now child is dependent on chocolate, so chocolate is called as independent variable and child is called as dependent variable. Now under this experimental research or causal research, we are going to identify how this independent variable will affect the dependent variable. So it is called as cause and effect relationship. Hope you got a clear picture about what is this causal research or experimental research. Now moving on to the meaning of this type of research is, the meaning of causal research is to determine the relationship between cause and effect. So we are going to determine the cause and effect relationship between the two variables, that is dependent and independent. So it is also known as explanatory research. So causal research is also called as experimental research and it is also called as explanatory research, because under this type of research the problem will get the explanation. So here we are going to explain the problem. So it is called as explanatory research. The variation in an independent variable is observed, which is assumed to be causing changes in the dependent variable. So we have seen this example here, how the child will stop crying when it gets the chocolate. In the same way, here under causal research or experimental research, we are going to see the variation in the independent variable with that of dependent variable. So for example, when a company wants to study the behavior of their consumers towards the changing price of their goods, they are called as what? Causal research. So here the company wants to see the behavior of the consumer when it rises the price of a particular product. So how the consumer will react? So here there is a reaction. So there is a cause, at the same time there is a effect. So it is called as experimental or causal research. Now coming to the advantages. So let us see few of the advantages of causal research. So the first one is, causal research helps to identify the causes between the process taking place in the system. So what are the changes that takes place in the system? So that can be easily identified through causal research. So changes here is nothing but cause and effect relationship. Having this knowledge helps the researcher to take necessary actions to fix the problem or to optimize the outcome. So once the problem has been identified, so we'll come to know what are the changes that takes place between the dependent variable and independent variable, so that will identify the problem. At the same time, the researcher will come to know the solution to that problem also. Next one is, next advantage, causal research provides the benefits of a replication if there is a need for it. Now, what do you mean by replication? Similar. So, here under experimental research or causal research, we can apply the same solutions to that a particular problem. So, similar type of problem can be solved with the similar type of solutions also. And the next one is, causal research helps to identify the impact of changing the process and existing methods. So what are the changes that takes place? Because the main intention of experimental research is to identify the cause and effect relationship. So thereby we can identify what are the changes that takes place in a particular process and what are the existing methods, or what are the changes that takes place in the existing methods. And the next advantage, in causal research, the subjects are selected systematically. So here the subjects or the problem has to be selected systematically. In the same way, the respondents has to be selected systematically. Because of this, causal research is helpful for higher levels of internal validity. So the results what we get under causal research will have a higher validity because the whole system of research takes place systematically, that is in a systematic manner. So these are the few advantages of causal research. Now coming to the disadvantage. So let us see what are the disadvantages of causal research or experimental research. So the first one is, the causal research is difficult to administer because sometimes it is not possible to control the effects of an extraneous variable. So there are number of external factors which are beyond the control of researcher. So under experimental research, it is very difficult to administer such type of external variable which are uncontrollable in nature. So this would be the first disadvantage, that is the researcher cannot control the uncontrollable factor. At the same time, it is highly difficult to administer such variable under causal research. And the next one is causal research is one of the most expensive research to conduct. So it is one of the most expensive research. So here lot of experiments has to be done, lot of changes has to be made. We have to observe carefully what are the cause and effect relationship. So thereby, so here it is very expensive when compared to any other type of research. The management requires a great deal of money and time to conduct research. So here the researcher wants huge amount of money, at the same time more time to conduct this exploratory, that is explanatory research or causal or experimental research. Next one is the findings of causal research are always inaccurate because there is always be a few previous causes or hidden causes that will be affecting the outcome of your research. Suppose the previous research is not successful. In that case, if the researcher refer the previous case, then even the current research also will not be successful. So, whatever the findings which is done under experimental research will not be accurate. Suppose the previous research activity goes wrong, then the current research activity will also become wrong. So this is also one of the disadvantage because we cannot get the accurate results. Next one is causal research is that provides information about your plans to your competitors. Normally what happens? So under causal research, so it provides information, whatever the collected information by the researcher to its competitors. So of course, in order to sustain in the market, there should not be competition, correct? So there should be a healthy competition. So, but in case of causal research, what happens? Whatever the information which is collected by the researcher, so it will be leaked to the competitors. So thereby, here the researcher may lose his value. So for example, they might use the outcomes of your research to identify what are up to and enter the market before you. So what happens? So whatever the information which is collected by the researcher under experimental research, using that other researcher may get the name and fame. Here what happens? The researcher who have collected before that, the other researcher might use that resources and he might become famous. So this is also one of the disadvantage, that is leakage of information to the competitors. Next one is another disadvantage of using causal research is that it takes long time to conduct. Of course, I have told you it requires long time, and at the same time, so if the duration is too long in the research activity, then the accuracy of the research will also be very good. So normally I have told you we cannot get the accurate results under experimental research or causal research. In that situation, the researcher will take a longer period of time in order to get the accurate results. So long time to conduct this research, the accuracy of the causal research is directly proportional to the time you have spent on the research, as you are required to spend more time to study the long-term effects of a marketing program. So if they want to study about a marketing program, then it is not an easy task. It requires long period of time. So if the research work is longer, then what happens? The accuracy of the information will also be very good. In that situation, this is a disadvantage of causal research. Next disadvantage is that one can't conclude merely depending upon the outcomes of causal research. So we cannot directly come to the conclusions. So we cannot get the exact result under causal research. So you are required to conduct other types of research alongside the causal research to confirm its output. So it is expensive for the researcher because through causal research they cannot get the exact result. In that situation they have to follow some other methods to prove this result. So in order to prove the result they have to conduct other research activities. Next one, sometimes it is easy for the researcher to identify that two variables are connected. So I have already told you there are two variables under causal research. One is dependent and other one is independent variable. So they are connected to each other because we are going to see the variations that takes place between dependent variable and independent variable. But what is the drawback here? But to determine which variable is cause and which variable is effect is a challenging for the researcher. So first we have to know which is a dependent variable and which is a cause, and which is independent variable and which is a effect. So it will be difficult for the researcher to identify which are the variables. Of course they will identify two variables, but the researcher will find difficult to identify which is a cause and which is a effect. So these are the few disadvantages of causal research. Now coming to the examples of causal research, to test the market for a new product by collecting data about the sales potential. Now, so under what situation this causal research will be applied? So it will be applied to test the market for a new product. So suppose a new product is launched in the market, then how will be the behavior of the consumer and how will be the sales promotion? What would be the sales output? So for each and everything they go for causal research. That is to test the market. So what is the market for the new product? So how the behavior of the consumer when a new product is launched in the market. So market for a new product by collecting data about its sales potential. Next one is to check the performance or effectiveness of a new advertising campaign to decide whether to continue it or not. Suppose a new advertisement has been released. So whether it is an effective or not effective advertisement, so by seeing the reaction of the consumer, so through experimental research or through causal research, the researcher will identify, so if they have released the new advertising campaign, so what is the reaction of the customers? So what is the reaction of the audience on this new advertisement? Next one is to measure the improvement in the performance of employees after providing them training on a new skill. Suppose a training has been given to the employees. So how they will work? So before giving the training, so and after giving the training, what is their performance? So in order to see the performance before and after the training, they use the experimental or causal research. It is to see the improvement after giving the training to the employees about a new skill. So these are the few examples of causal research. So in my next session, I am going to discuss about types of experimental research design. So how the experimental research design should be, and the next one is errors relating to improper selection of respondents. So what are the errors that has been conducted? So what are the errors that can be identified in business research design? So in order to make a proper research, so there should be elimination of errors, correct? In the same way, here also we are going to see which are the type of errors that affects the business research design. So these are the two topics what I am going to discuss in your next session. My dear students, in today's session, we have learnt about causal research or experimental research. See you all in my next session with a new topic. Till then, take care. Thank you.